welcome to a very special edition of the Esports Social Club's Not Another Podcast. I'm Jimneso. Joining me is Sean Baal Carlson, Iain Snyper Turner, and of course, Geordie McAleer. And we have a live studio audience, all two of them.
Oh, it's popping. It's popping in here, Jim.
The crowd goes absolutely mild, and I like it. But we've got some special guests to talk to later, and we want to, I guess, break this podcast up into two parts in that we had a question from Max Malbag. Max Malbag keeps delivering the goods week after week after week. It's been 2 weeks.
It's the best segment. It's a segment that we've now built 2 podcasts on.
It's great. Mm-hmm. It's great. But we obviously have a lot to talk about. There's also a desire for a lot to be talked about. But what the question itself is around is Grassroots. And, I mean, we've brought some special guests in, and we'll have them on later to talk about Grassroots and their take on it. But we wanted to get your take. And the question itself actually comes from Source OCE. And it reads, what is your take on the state of Grassroots LAN events in OCE? Any games? Is it better or worse than previous years? And how can we look to improve? Now, back in years gone by, Grassroots LANs provided a different function. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
state qualifiers.
Yeah, there was state-based LANs and state-based, and particularly in CS 1.6, the state-based sort of rivalries were quite big. But if you want to go back, I mean, a definition of Grassroots today, and we will get into that, back then mostly was Grassroots, right? Like a lot of the stuff that was happening would be considered Grassroots in today's sort of, I guess, look at it.
Yeah, well, in terms of the structure of how any game was created was the fact that your Grassroots was basically where you started. For a lot of these players, it was their first competitive entry level was on LAN in a competitive environment with teammates at a local net cafe. That was Grassroots LAN in the sense that was a player's first introduction to a competitive game.
100%.
Yep. Zero ping.
Yeah.
Zero ping. But
everyone had their home net cafes. Like obviously me and Iain are from Perth. And, if we go back, I'm pretty sure his home cafe for most of his time would have been DNA. Yeah. DNA Cannington. I was from AXG, which was, a different, I guess, a rivalry. Oh, I don't know about that, See, we could get, but these rivalries kind of built between cafes. They'd also house their own teams. So the DNA LAN team was by far the best. That's where housed probably the best players.
He looked at me. He's like,
but there was teams from different net cafes. Yeah, well.
Yeah.
And then that's what it was though. Like if you wanted to play, most people spent most of their time playing at net cafes in the early days.
Yeah.
And that was sort of everyone's, I guess, if you were getting into the competitive side of video games, that was everyone's sort of starting point.
Well, that was also a way in because you were spotted. You were somebody. If you went to a net cafe, everyone else who was playing a game, if you were the best player in the server, and you just play pub as well, by the way.
Yeah, that's what
you just play pub at the net cafe with everyone else on LAN, and if you were good, everyone would be like, oh, who's that guy? And then some people might be like, oh, is he in a team? And then also, you didn't have to have a $2,000 computer at home. You could just rock up to this net cafe and pay them instead.
Yeah, spend $2,000 on hours over a year.
But then your parents see the environment you're in and the other people you're playing with, and they see the good in it. And so that was just...
In some cases.
Yeah, in some cases. Not like, Planet where people got stabbed. But there was... I
mean, you guys laugh, but that's a real thing, right?
We did it tough in WA.
Knife rounds.
Real life.
Just for context, can you tell that story, Bar?
Iain can, if you'd like to.
The stabbing?
Yeah.
The stabbing?
The stabbing.
Just for context.
I've never heard the story.
Some young fellow had a extremely large heroin debt.
Oh, right.
And he didn't pay it. And there were a lot of gangs in Perth at the time, and he liked to play at Planet, so they just got him where they could find him.
Right.
So it wasn't actually related to anything other than something that happened outside of the game.
So no one was. So basically, these guys have been training for stabbing people by playing Counter-Strike.
Oh, okay, a current affair.
Right. Wow.
Sorry, I just love dropping that in there. But
You shouldn't mean that. People will take that seriously.
Yeah, because I thought it might have been a disagreement over a game.
No,
and now I've found out it's nothing to do with that.
No, absolutely
just for context.
To do with the game. It's just that's where they knew they could find this guy, and they stabbed him.
Yep. Well, that's good. It's good to know.
Well,
moving right along.
You used to get a really big mix of people at these net cafes too. Like Iain can attest to that. You'd have young kids who would come after school to play at a net cafe. You'd get adults and things like that were coming after work. And
sometimes you'd get gangs. No big deal.
Yeah, sometimes you would. But I mean, it's
the way it was.
It's how it was.
Well, also there was like 2 police officers in the same one. and
In the same team?
in the same net cafe.
Oh.
They used to come play games as well, obviously, training. And, one of them was there, and unfortunately...
You've got to stop that.
Couldn't
meme,
help.
Ian. Stop
Couldn't
it.
help.
Special shout out to Skrilla as well, who are our fantastic sponsor. They've been
Skrilla.
They've been reinvesting in Australian esports as well with a number of different partnerships. So make sure you check them out. You can also get involved with their fantasy league as well. And with the CSGO majors going on or any other domestic competitions, make sure you're on board with Skrilla because they're on board with us. Yeah. All right, let's get into the crux of things in the sense that, all right, I want to talk about your introductions to competitive games themselves. Mac, how did you first learn about the competitive side of Counter-Strike?
Of Counter-Strike? Oh, wow. That's back in the day. The competitive side, I got into Dota before I got into Counter-Strike. And Counter-Strike was a shit game to me because I would play it and I'm like, why are the bullets not going where my crosshair is? This game's stupid. And then I stopped playing the game for ages. And then eventually came back, did the hard yards and enjoyed it. Yeah.
But did you play online? Did you play with
just
friends
online.
or LAN? Okay. So for you, your first introduction was playing online in a competitive environment.
Yeah. For ages, I was on 100 ping because I was out sort of like in the country where it's not even the country. It's like coastal, but it still had crazy high ping. But then I did get a taste of LAN at a UOW Video Game Association LAN one time with a couple of guys who I sort of knew from uni. And when I got to play there, that was crazy because all of a sudden my bullets were hitting straight away without having this like 1/10 of a second you had to wait before you knew if you killed someone or not. And I was like, oh, wow, this is great. I love this.
Instant gratification. That's very millennial of you. Boomers.
Bloody old.
Anyway, Ian, your introduction to competitive gaming or Counter-Strike.
I want to do it so bad that I was looking for somewhere to train up. But basically...
Stop it.
I can't help it.
Stop
It is a meme. It is a fucking meme. Basically, I was playing this other game competitively called Rogue Spear on the MSN Gaming Zone. People won't know what that is, but they don't know what the save button is either. And
It's a floppy drive.
we were pretty good at that. And then one of my friends started playing Counter-Strike from Sydney, and I was in Perth. So, and it was a very LAN-heavy game back then. It was very community-driven because it was just a mod for Half-Life. So you only knew about it if your friends played it. And there was no like website or anything. But yeah, so basically it was that. And then this guy said, oh, here, I have my Half-Life copy. So that's how that turned out. And I have his CD key to this day. He gifted it to me.
You don't even know his name, do you?
I know his alias.
And Sean,
Wolverine.
what was your introduction to competitive gaming? Was it in a online environment? Was it a LAN environment? Was it a...
It's definitely LAN environment was sort of my introduction to, I guess, competitive gaming. Obviously, I remember, like, I've got vivid memories of being really young, and it was actually with my basketball team. We went to a net cafe and we sat down, and it was my first time playing Counter-Strike, and I was captivated. I was like, what is this? What is going on? And I was getting smashed, but obviously I got quite intrigued. I ended up going to AXG, which was a net cafe I mentioned earlier, and from there, they ran little tournaments. I remember the first sort of competitive side of gaming that I got into was you'd become friends with the people who worked there, and then you're allowed to, at AXG, 1v1 them to try and win hours. So I used to do that in CS, and then sort of expanded from there. And then obviously there was that whole sort of Merc time, MIRC.
Yep.
Where there was pugs and competitions, and you'd set up your little team page, and you'd spend all your time doing the creative little colors and stuff on your topic.
That's how you entered the game.
Yep. That's how you entered. That's how you got into it on an online perspective. But it definitely for me was LAN into online. And then I actually spent a fair bit of time. I didn't really do Source. I spent a fair bit of time doing Dota and Dota 2, and then I guess re-emerged again for CSGO, which I played somewhat competitively.
To give people context as well to what Merc was, or MIRC, it was basically Discord as we know it now, but without the voice chat function. Discord's merged two program sets together, the voice chat and the text chat.
It's basically
Merc
what
was
Neo,
the text chat.
It's what Neo was in. Basically, it was that old school.
Yeah,
it's like just instant relay chat.
That's where everything was. That was like the combination of Twitter and Discord as far as like the home of esports was MIRC.
Okay, so the reason why I asked you guys how you got into competitive gaming, how you got into the scene was that back in the day, obviously, LAN itself served a very different function.
Yep.
It was basically the way that you fed players into your scene. It was the way that you grew your scene
It was
through
a
LAN.
social thing as well.
Yeah.
Nerds getting together, you know?
So the reason I wanted to get that sort of context was it would also definitely impact the way that you would define grassroots. Am I correct in saying that? So when you look at grassroots in the very entry level, and when you think the most basic level of a community, what do you think of when you think of the word grassroots?
Accessible for everybody. So accessible for anyone is what grassroots, in my opinion, is.
Mhm.
So if you wanted to play a game of what, whether it's CSGO, whatever it might be, if there's a LAN that you can just rock up to with some friends and play, that is sort of grassroots for me. As long as it's accessible to anybody to sort of enter into the scene, I'd consider that grassroots. I think that there's a little bit more added into grassroots now as the scene and the industry develops here in Australia. We're seeing high school leagues and stuff like that I'd actually put into grassroots as well. An opportunity for young people who may not have experienced gaming before in a competitive environment are having these structures set up for them. But yeah, as long as it's accessible to everybody, and then also the high school stuff, which is obviously a bit restricted. You got to be a high school student. But yeah, that's how I look at it.
What was the question? No, just kidding. So basically,
Should have hit him with it.
yeah, for me, grassroots is basically just the entry level, right? Where the beginners can jump on. I think it's changed over time. You've got websites, you've got Fame, you've got Twitter, you've got social media. So I don't think it is LAN anymore. You don't meet people at LAN and go, "Oh, this is my first one." Like, "Oh, I don't know what I'm doing here." Everything happens online now. I think that's where community gets created, and there's just so many different communities now. You've got Twitch communities, you've got Discord communities. So it's really anywhere there. And then the entry level is like, where do they choose to play? What's their platform? Is it obtainable for anyone? Is it free? Stuff like that. So I don't think it is LAN anymore. I think it's shifted a bit in terms of grassroots.
And yeah, I guess my opinion is that it's just generally a place where you can grow as a player. Like, going from entry level, obviously you got to start somewhere, hone your skills, play around, and not necessarily like, I see it as like, blade of grass, roots, bottom of the food chain, all the way up to, you grow into this nice, beautiful piece of grass, right? That's where you're going to.
Beautiful piece of grass. That's great. I like that.
Do you have a well-kept lawn? Is that?
I don't know. Did Maddie mow it today? That's the real question.
Oh, Maddie, you're on call out here.
He's been on blast.
I think also on that, it's also fair to say, Ian, that back when we were playing at net cafes and things like that, not everyone had internet at home.
Yeah,
Not everyone had a smartphone with access to the internet like we do these days, right? So with modern internet, everyone's far more connected than they used to be. And it just makes sense that even for a lot of the grassroots LAN stuff that we have these days, it's organized online.
Yep.
Like you kind of, you sign up online, or you connect online first, and then you go and meet these people, or, participate in the LAN events. But that's just down to, everyone's got a phone these days. Everyone's got access to some sort of internet. Well, most people do, but yeah.
I just think for grassroots is like where the entry-level person has an opportunity to make themselves or forge some sort of success or some path towards success. That's grassroots.
Yeah, and the point you were making about multiple different entry points as well, I think that's very relevant in the sense that back when yourself and Sean started playing, and even myself started playing back in, we'd call it like the Neolithic era, wouldn't we? To be honest, that was only one real entry point into competitive Counter-Strike, and we're going to talk about Counter-Strike specifically, and that was the LAN route. There was the local LAN route, and that was your one entry point. So that, for me, that was grassroots, that local LAN. But there's multiple entry points now. As Mac was saying, he was playing, for example, like CG qualifiers back in the day. There was online leagues, there was entry points there. People learning to play competitive Counter-Strike in an online environment. Some were still going through local LAN environments where they had, bring your own PC LANs as well. And then, of course, there was the net cafe route. So as time has gone by, grassroots has actually meant multiple different things. Yeah. And so
it's evolved.
It has evolved. And I think one of the interesting points to take out of this is the fact that people still think that there is, this grassroots crisis. And I don't think that is the case, because they're focusing on one particular pathway, whether that be, the online pathway, the LAN pathway, or like the, other entry points into Counter-Strike. I think that they are very much only looking at one part of the bigger picture.
Yeah.
So when they say that, there's a grassroots crisis,
Mhm.
or there's we need to turn more attention to grassroots. It's a very broad spectrum.
Well, there is a lot of attention on Grassroots already, but not really for Counter-Strike.
Mm.
Like you were saying with university leagues and so on. But for Counter-Strike, what entry-level tournaments are there to enthuse a player to go pro? What's that stepping stone?
There's a lot of options for players. Is like if you're a new player and you've never played before, you can get Counter-Strike. It's obviously free now as well. You can get your copy of Counter-Strike, and you can go on to Faceit, and you can create an account and bang, you're playing Faceit. You can get your ESEA account, bang, you're playing ESEA. I don't advise that.
Or you can just use the default matchmaking.
Or you can default matchmaking, which is obviously a competitive setup.
But there's no prize money for shitty matchmaking through Valve, right?
This is something as well. You need to be part of a community to want to play, right?
Yeah.
I played CS, but it wasn't until I made some friends online that I enjoyed the game. I thought, this is pretty boring. I just get guys that yell every game, and I end up leaving every pug that I was a part of because I was like, I don't like these guys yelling at me. I had no idea what I was doing at the time. But then I met these guys once I started to get sort of like the Nova MG level, and then they're like, oh, come play with us. And then I've got part of this community, still friends with them to this day, and they're all great guys. But without them, I would have stopped playing CS in 2014.
So is it safe to say that your inspiration came from DMX, Party Up? That was the solution?
I don't know about that one.
Yeah, so basically...
Otherwise, you'd lose your mind in here.
He's right, though. Community is what drives it, right?
Yeah.
So, because that's what... It's like a recruitment drive.
I need a whack.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's like a recruitment drive, right? So, you got to pick up your friends and say, hey, do you want to come play? And then you start focusing on competitive. Where can you go and win like $100? I think that would bring people in as a team. Somewhere online, maybe they can just start practicing and aiming for that goal, because... We used to have GOT games. We used to have Cyber Game and National. We used to have anyone that would pop up, and we used to have all those open tournaments as well. And they're all pretty much disappeared now. And I think that's a real problem, because you can't just play something for fun with some friends now.
Well, not in a competitive setup, right? You can pug for which is obviously things like
Pickup
Faceit,
game for those of you that aren't Counter-Strike
which
initiated.
tools like Faceit and like Instafrag and things like that, right? Where
Yeah.
people can get involved. But that era of back when we were first starting to play CSGO, if you didn't really know anyone, you'd meet some friends, you'd make some friends. Next thing you know, you're signing up for Cyber Gamer Open, or you're signing up for CGA, which didn't have any requirements other than you paid your fee and you rocked up for your matches, and you got to do an actual 5v5 kind of proper competitive game, and then that actually created a ladder. If you won CGA, you got an opportunity to play CGI or whatever it was,
CGM.
Division 2. I think CGM, and then they had three.
Then
right?
there was Game Arena as well. I think they had a kind of
There was Game Arena. That's gone
Using
way
cogs
back.
back in the day.
Just saying, there's always been something, but right now there isn't really anything, right? And is CGA
Is LPL
doing anything?
Is LPL doing something? Because it's LPL now, right? CG got
LPL,
taken over by LPL.
That's the other thing, too.
Are they doing an amateur league?
They are, but it just seems more messy.
That's an issue with Counter-Strike itself, in a sense that people... And
it's elite.
This is a rounded look at what I was talking about, in that there are several different leagues going. There are several different pathways. There are several different entries to Counter-Strike, and it's very fragmented.
Yes.
Like if you wanted to try and track a different entry point into the Counter-Strike scene, whether that be ESCA or like Faceit or LPL or whatever it was, or if you were just coming through and just purely playing LAN, which in the Counter-Strike sense doesn't really exist
It's not possible
anymore. It's very fragmented though. Like if you only focus on one pathway and that's all you know, you get to a certain point where you then go, oh, hang on, there's also this league, there's that league, there are multiple different entry points, and they all lead to the same thing, the same level that we're at. So that's where I question as to whether or not Grassroots itself, whether or not there's actually an issue with it, because ultimately, over time, the pathways have started to open up. There's more entry points, there's more pathways.
What Grassroots pathways do you think there are right now? There's LPL for 5-man teams to play competitively. There's LPL, there's CGA.
ESCA Open.
This year?
CGA is gone, isn't it?
CGA's there.
Yeah,
CGA's
Still there? Okay.
And there's still CGO. I can't remember what the names are at the moment.
Yeah.
They've got different like tiered versions.
Yeah.
And
And
so
so
ESCA as well, which anyone can sign up to the Open League for that.
ESCA Open's a really good one too, because you have like teams that should be like CGI caliber who may have not had the core players to play MDL or got knocked out of MDL.
Yeah.
And then you have these teams that are just starting up that will have to play them and have a real understanding
But
of
it's a good
what getting
entry.
smashed
It's a good
feels
entry
like.
level, right? It's a good
Yeah.
place to go.
Because there's no restrictions other than you have to pay the subscription.
Yeah.
Right? You have to pay entry and subscription with the SCA. So you got to put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah,
if you do want to play. But
that's everywhere these
yeah,
days.
that's standard. If you were to go down and play in your local basketball league, you'll have sign up fees. You'll have to pay each week you rock up.
But
and things like
all
that.
right, so just what do you think the problem is then? Is it the problem that the base level is too hard now, too good for someone just to rock up and be like, oh, Counter-Strike looks like fun. I'll play
My idea of what the problem is at least when I started, CG forums were like there, and you had a main place where you'd talk to people, find your teams, and at least you could find like your CGA teams there, and post your LFT threads. Whereas nowadays, I see mostly on Twitter. I think the forums are there on LPL, but after whatever that update was on CG, where everything got a bit more messy, and no one liked it, but it never changed back. That's sort of when it started the spiral downhill a little bit.
Snap and Asterisk got a little bit crazy with that one.
Yeah.
So what you're highlighting there is the fact that a pathway itself, you've got even more fragmented. It's very difficult to track actually where you sort of sat within the mix of
where to
other players.
find where you would start.
Yeah, just even
Really?
using the platform became pretty difficult.
Yeah.
And I think that's exactly where you're right in saying that high school and university are great entry points,
But they've got to lead to somewhere.
but they've got to lead to somewhere, correct? So like there's bits of pathway. There's the grassroots itself, but there's no actual lawn.
Yeah.
If that's
Well, that's
I'm gonna put it as an analogy.
no,
There's,
it's a good idea.
there's no middle section, right?
It's just
So
a tuft of grass.
I guess the problem I see with the high school stuff and even some of the university stuff at the moment is it feels very siloed. Feels like that's kind of happening over here, and it doesn't really feed into the actual scene where
There's none for Counter-Strike.
No, and I mean, like, obviously League of Legends have some cool stuff going on that they're doing
brand thing,
on
right?
high
Like,
school and
how easy is it to sell a Counter-Strike league to
It's a violence
people?
thing.
Exactly. You're not going to. It's an issue with the game itself.
Yeah.
This is also
to brands.
a problem in that you have teams like Greyhound now, which are obviously top of the food chain, but they don't play any of the domestic leagues because they are seeing it exactly like what we're talking about now. There's no lawn. It's like, cool, we won some money from playing in this domestic league and, stomping everyone else. But where's it lead to? There's nowhere.
Well,
So
unless it's an
MDL,
international qualifier, I wouldn't be playing it.
that's it.
Yeah.
Right? And that's part of the discussion.
Because the
as
money's
well.
not even worth it here, right?
Well, I don't
We've only
know.
got so much
sometimes
time.
it's not even
Yeah.
the money. Like sometimes the headache that's involved in some of these leagues not being managed too well or being a bit mismanaged and things like that creates an environment where players and teams sort of have to weigh up whether or not it's actually going to be worth it due to the structure of the tournament and how they do it. But we're talking top end here, right?
But again, like as I just said before, teams have a finite amount of time. They can't really commit themselves to X amount of leagues and play everything domestically.
Yeah.
Because they're just not going to have the capacity to do so. And then go and what happens when they do have to go overseas? They leave for 3-4 weeks at a time, and it's like, oh well, there's no fixtures if you play this team.
That's why MDL worked for Greyhound, right? Because they were overseas at the start of the season, came back, played like 2 or 3 games a night for the whole week, and then got all of their season's games done in a week because they just focused on it. And then they were off to whatever other comp was on at the same time.
See, I actually found it quite interesting what Gfinity were trying to do with their, feeder sort of system where they had players participating in these tournaments, building up points, and then those players would get drafted into teams. Some of those players got some airtime, some of them didn't on the actual main stage. I think the concept was smart as far as trying to introduce players from the sort of like that Div 2 or level into sort of the Div 1, but also it kind of undermined the competitiveness of the main league as well. So it's about finding that balance.
It is very much about finding that balance. I mean, you got arguments to say that it's difficult because you're bringing individuals in a team-based environment.
Yes.
Which traditionally you want to see teams go through together as a unit and progress. And like there will be cores of teams that will do that, not necessarily the whole team that makes that leap from, say, for example, the entry point to the end point.
Yeah.
You'll pick up different players along the way. You'll upgrade, or you'll whatever circumstances may come, and you'll eventually get to a better stance down the point.
A lot of our listeners may not even realize that as well, that the team element of these games is incredibly important. It's not like you can just get 5 people who like playing the game, sticking together, and they're going to have success. You know, you need to practice together. You need to be able to communicate with one another. You need to be on the same page as far as the commitment that you're going to put into this and have the same sort of goals that you're trying to achieve as a team. And that element of esports is, you know, something that may get overlooked by people who aren't too familiar with it, but is a crucial part of, you know, being successful and building a team within esports. So
yeah.
Do you think we're just kind of panicking a little bit because Counter-Strike isn't a game that appeals to new people? Because there was a time when you'd get on the bus or the train and everyone was thinking, like, all the school kids knew who you were because they watched Counter-Strike. Or they would be watching Counter-Strike on their phone on the way to work or something. And I'd be like, oh, that's cool. And then nowadays it's like the kids are all playing Fortnite. They're all playing League of Legends still. And Counter-Strike's just not really appealing to them.
So you're trying to say the player base has kind of been diluted a bit with so many different titles, right? So we're not having that.
The tides of darkness are once again upon us.
It's like that World of Warcraft genocide that came in when 1.6 players just disappeared.
Well, that wasn't just WoW. That was obviously Source split the community.
No, so
right?
WoW
and then WoW came in and just...
WoW was way before Source.
Well, WoW was, but then Source also split it again as well.
Ooh.
Yeah, which didn't...
WoW was like, what, August, September 2004?
Yeah.
Source wasn't until 05.
So there was many careers that died due to WoW.
Condition Zero didn't help either.
Condition Zero was
true.
so
It was
much fun.
It's a lot of fragmentation.
But anyway, so what I'm saying
is
is...
similar phenomenon.
It's the fragmentation, but it's also like that the lack of appeal. Like,
What about the lack of being able to pay attention as well? You know, attention spans these days.
Yeah.
You know, with like...
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Jim.
It's tough. It's tough out here.
It's tough. It's tough. But with the attention spans, you know how like some of the kids that are coming up, they'll play like Fortnite and stuff because you only have to play a game. It takes 20 minutes and that's it. If they obviously kids probably shouldn't be playing this game to begin with at too young of an age.
Fortnite?
CS.
What's the difference?
Lots of blood.
Oh.
I mean, I get what you're saying. I think you do have a point there as far as the fast-paced nature of some of these new FPSs that are coming out. So you mentioned Fortnite. It's a relatively fast-paced game with the building and with the stuff that goes on.
Teamwork,
Apex
no
as well.
Social element.
Apex is similar sort of story, quite a fast-paced game.
Yeah.
CS is, compared to those sorts of FPS titles, is a bit slower.
Yeah.
Slower, more difficult, requires more.
Yeah. And because there's a higher skill ceiling and it's harder to break the barrier and understand what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like I was saying before, I started playing the game and I thought it was dumb.
Yeah.
So I stopped playing it, which is probably what a lot of people do. But there's more titles these days that you can pick up
It's always
and be
had
good
that
at it
tough
straight
skill
away.
ceiling, though. It's always had that tough skill ceiling.
Yeah.
But that's what it was the appeal of it at the time.
100%.
It was just like, it wasn't a game you could just pick up and be like, look how good I am.
What you
But
mean?
then you saw someone who
We're going
was
to get a
good.
mech at the start of the game
I was
and
about to
rain
say
down hell on
that
people.
that
But
instant gratification, right? That you can get from Fortnite.
But you would look at people who were good and you'd be like, oh, I could be that good one day if I tried.
Yeah, well, you watch the major and go, that doesn't look that hard, and then
Oh, yeah.
actually,
Oh yeah, we've all fallen into that. I'm so inspired to play.
Jim's
Look at the
Jim's
way
point
simple
there
plays.
on like you mentioned the mech, right? With a bit of a Fortnite issue going on at the moment. A lot of people unhappy with a new. I'd call it a weapon, but it's more like
A vehicle.
a vehicle in Fortnite that
It's actually a philosophy.
yeah,
I'm not even no word of a lie. I put it down to a philosophy problem.
yeah, no, 100%. Anyone,
Yeah.
anyone. So you can jump into Fortnite. You could have never played before, like and played very few FPSs, right? Maybe just browser games or something on the school computer. You can hop into one of those mechs, and there's a good chance you'll win that game. Then you get there's no tiering. It's like you could be in the same game as someone from the Renegades Fortnite team, and you can win that game and walk away feeling like you've achieved something, right? CSGO, you come in as a new player. For instance, I mean, I've got vivid memories of people I've run into whose first time playing CS is they've downloaded the game and jumped on ESEA, right? And
That actually explains a lot.
that person, based on not only his experience in ESEA, but the abuse he cops from his teammates who are trying to take this seriously and competitively, probably never comes back, right? Because it is very difficult. It's a very hard game to learn. There's a huge learning curve in CSGO that you don't have to overcome in some of these other titles that have come out. And also with new titles, you're starting on the same sort of, I guess, level as everyone else, right? So you can learn the game at the same time as everyone else. There'll be people who are naturally better at FPS games and have sort of, the muscle memory from other titles that they've played that will excel faster. But you also you start on the same level.
Do you know what's gone?
What? Tell me.
32-player Dust 2 servers.
Man, I used to
That's how we got
dominate
people
those
in.
things.
That's how we used to get people in.
It was great. There's nothing better than just running up mid on pistol and
There's
getting
no
free.
like 1 hour commitment. You
Dust
just
2.
join the Dust 2 server that everyone's in.
Yep.
It's 16 versus 16. You play a couple of rounds. You do good. You do bad. Map changes. You go home. You do whatever
Well,
else you're doing.
you knew half the people in the server too.
Well,
was
you
regular.
got
Yeah.
that was just a community, so you got to learn that community.
That's the
banter
other
and
thing as
stuff.
well. Like the default entry point into the game itself now. Like, for example, Counter Strike. We're going to keep Counter Strike theme. You want to play a casual game? It just throws you into a random server.
Yeah.
You don't get to pick that every time,
Back
and
in
you
the
don't
day-
have the education on the game on how to keep joining the same server.
Yep.
You don't know what a server IP is.
Yep.
There's no
You'll never see that
instruction
person
manual
again.
for you.
You'll never see that person.
Exactly. It's
And-
like that fleeting moment you have with someone on public transport. You're
Back
like,
in the day, it was like, what
Never see you
servers
again.
do you play on? And it was like, oh, I play on RPGN. Oh, I play on Magoo. Oh, I play on GA. It's like you had that community. Oh, I play on Internet. Like, pfft, get out of here. But like, you had that community in each of those servers, and you kept going back to those servers because, like, if you were a good player, you were respected on those servers.
I expect you would have, the same as me, had hours and hours and hours enjoyed on maps like Pool Day and Scouts Knives and even Blood Strike and things like that. I don't know if,
I wasn't super keen on those.
you were just Dust 2. You were just in the Dust 2.
No, I was like Italy.
Yeah.
Stuff
Oh,
like that.
yeah.
Hostage
Ooh,
rescue maps.
his-
Because
Office.
we're so old school. Like,
Yeah.
that's the pub
Yep.
CS used to have hostage maps and stuff. And
Yep.
that was the good fun. That
Yep.
was, if you're going to play pub, you'd do hostage maps.
maps like Assault as well. I really enjoyed Assault.
Back alley, that was my
Yeah.
favorite, to be honest.
Yep.
Bet it was.
So the point we're talking about here is community. A lot of these
Yeah.
games are based on community, founded on community. Is it safe to say the grassroots LAN events, and I'm bringing it back around to the question itself, which was LAN events, serve a different purpose nowadays? They're not so much an entry point. You're not pulling in brand new players who have never played competitive before, but it is an exercise in building community.
I'd say it's a celebration.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
You get to go and see a bunch of people you wouldn't usually hang out with.
Which
I
used to
guess.
be net cafes.
Yeah.
Now it's LAN.
Mm.
Like, you used to celebration would be like, oh, what are you doing? Like, let's get together and go to the net cafe. And then there'd be other people there that you'd hang out with, and you'd have LAN parties.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is grassroots now are LAN parties where you just play a CS tournament.
Yeah, forget
Yeah,
your
it feels
your
a bit
ice
more
cream
like
cake
that.
at McDonald's.
But what
For your
one of you
party,
guys
it's a LAN
used
party.
a term the other day, which was, it's like a rich man's pub, right?
Yeah, that's what I said. It's rich man's sport.
Yeah, rich man's sport. Rich man's esport.
Yeah.
It's going to LAN.
Yeah, that's
We got,
true. Barriers to entry. It is a
people
big barrier to entry.
People flying interstate. Like, I remember there was the Sydney LAN that MC ran start of the year. You have like Chubb flying over from Perth, I'm pretty sure, all the way to play with like Blitz. I don't know, just because they're mates.
Yeah. Well, a lot of it's the social element as well, right? These people you spend a lot of time with online.
It's a LAN
Get an
party.
opportunity to catch up and meet each other. Something else that's different, and I mean, we see some initiatives these days. MC Land's great. It's doing this state-based stuff where
okay.
Bris Vegas
people-
as well.
yeah, Bris Vegas as well. But
Vegas.
back in the day, when I remember playing when I was playing 1.6 and the AXG days and DNA and things like that, there was so many people playing in Perth and WA, and I know it was the same in Queensland and most of the other states.
With the
that
bunker.
you could be forgiven for never really even looking outside your state. You'd have 16 LAN teams in WA at its peak. And everyone would just
I think
make sure
everyone
that,
knew we were killing it, to be honest.
Yeah,
we had
we-
the most. We
we
had
had
the
a
most
great team.
teams, I think.
WA.
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
We,
Yeah,
well, I mean, we were right up there because I remember my experience
really
of
hear
early 1.6 competitiveness
Yeah.
was not even looking outside the state of WA. It was all about all the players and the teams and the personalities in WA and the people you get along with and people you just wanted to beat and you couldn't stand.
It was a
and-
stepping stone. You had to be the
Yeah.
best in WA first. You didn't even give a shit about any other state because
Nope.
you'd never get to verse them properly.
Yep.
Yeah,
exactly.
we didn't even know much about what was happening
Exactly,
in WA
exactly.
until it came to a national. When you were like, okay, this is the best two teams you
When
can send.
Pantheons would
Yeah.
report, when Pantheon ES would report like the qual results, and people were like, "What? There was 18 teams at the Perth qual."
Yeah. So how on earth did they run a double
They
elimination
had Dirty
in one
Harry.
day? Yeah. How on earth did they run a double elim bracket in one day?
Yeah, you were
You were 5 seconds late.
Yeah, you docked around.
Yeah.
Really?
So, would you agree with the sentiment though that like grassroots land events serve a completely different purpose nowadays? It is very much about building community.
It's the party side of it.
It is the party. I think that the celebration sentiment is probably bang on in the sense that there with community comes
it's not a
building
sense
a
of
strong community.
achievement. It's not a sense of achievement, really.
No, but it is now. When you used to turn up to LAN and you used to turn up and you were that guy
Sure did.
that you were
Every time.
Turner. He's turning up. When you actually rocked up to LAN, you may have been, for example, a little bit of a keyboard warrior. You may have said some things. You may have just been a little bit boisterous on the forums.
Not me.
Not at all.
Continue.
But you may have been a competitor. You may have been a fierce competitor online. That can be taken the wrong way. Cockiness and confidence, you always walk a fine line with that.
Yeah.
But you turn up to LAN, and for those that did have that, that tightrope that they walked with cockiness and confidence, and maybe sat on the cocky side, there was a certain level of accountability that you had when turning up to LAN.
Yeah.
And it was something you had to do.
Yeah.
If you were good.
If you were good, and if you wanted to be good, if you wanted to be recognised, you had to turn up to LAN.
And there was onliners.
Yeah.
Exactly. That was the difference. LANers, onliners.
There was acronyms for all this stuff. Like if you were bad on LAN.
Your bowl.
Yeah.
BOL, not BOWL.
Yeah, and people would be hitting you with dial, do it at LAN.
Yeah,
Oh.
I was a big fan of that.
Yeah, do it. Yeah, I bet you were, because you probably shit online here.
Every Westie was.
Ain't that the truth?
It's hard out here being a Westie.
It was hard.
Having that. How much ping would you have had back in the day on like 1.6?
Do you know who one of the biggest onliners I can think of from WA was? And I think you'd agree with me here. And he's probably going to hate me for calling him out. But Tonks.
Well, he cheated, so that's
You reckon? You think he cheated?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Wasn't Tonks one of these CG admins?
He was
He
a
was
CG
a
admin.
CG
It's
admin.
well
Yeah,
known
right.
that he actually did cheat. Anyway.
Oh, okay.
So
There's a
basically,
Well, that explains why he could do it online,
Yeah.
but struggled on LAN.
Fundamental error there.
when we first started, I had ADSL 1, and the rates back then, the most you could have was 128.
No, 101.
101, yeah, 101.
If you hit 50, remember the guys that were hitting 501 rates?
Yeah, and there was like the Muha configs and stuff. Back
Thir-
in those
30K.
days-
30K.
Kilobits per second.
So when I
Yeah.
had iPrimus dial up, I had 130 ping to iPrimus servers, and then after that it was
It was like 3 kilobits per second.
5.6. Got the full rate with the little string command and the modem. Anyway, so probably sat on 98 for so long. I was on 98 for
ping.
years. Yeah,
Okay.
years and years and years. It wasn't until ADSL came along that it went down to 80.
Bet you had a V92 modem too,
You had-
you cheeky bugger.
I
had
had
lower
ping. I had a Banksia wave.
You had lower ping from WA than I had from a coastal town.
Yeah, but that's just routing.
In New
Coastal
South
towns
Wales.
sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, you probably had to tend to the farms.
I mean, we could probably do a whole podcast on Australian internet, that's for sure. But,
Yeah. No, actually,
yeah, I'm just saying.
if
but
we did a podcast on the Australian internet, it'd never actually make it to
you
the
had,
internet.
so you had your LANers, you had your onliners, you had your sprayers, you had your tappers,
But
you had everything.
you had a whole mix of people that turned up. And what it did was, for those that, as I said, were a little bit too boisterous online, there was a certain sense of accountability. It's like, okay, well, now actually all that you've been talking, you've got to back it up.
Yeah, of course.
And you knew that you had to keep turning up and you had to keep backing up
Some
what you
people
said.
couldn't turn up.
No.
You know, like Azza for a long time.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Sai, I remember you.
I've got a video of it.
Beat him like 16-1.
yeah, but the thing with Azza, it never stopped him.
Hmm?
He kept turning up.
Mm.
But
he kept
that's what
putting
it
in,
is.
And then because like people don't also
It's
don't
a
understand.
sense of accomplishment. That's what I'm saying.
It's not just a sense of accomplishment. It's a different game.
What is?
Online versus LAN.
It really
No,
is.
it is.
And I
It
It's
think
a pressure cooker,
I think-
but that's it.
I think
I think even the way that, like, particularly being from WA, Ian, you'd have to deal with that. You'd be, if you were peaking,
Yeah.
right, it'd be okay. But if someone peaked on you and you were trying to hold a line from WA, whether you're an
Yeah,
AWPer or not, nightmare.
But then you get to LAN.
Get to LAN, different game. But if you had those play styles that were so ingrained into the way you played
I
that
get
you
it.
didn't adjust,
Yep.
right, then you do worse on LAN. So a lot of players have to, it takes them a couple
No,
of
because then
LANs
for some players, I think the only difference was pressure.
No, I
you know,
agree. There are some players
Because of their
that
pings at home. But for us, it was a whole different kettle of fish.
Well, there's players out there that prided themselves on their ability to get into the head of their oppositions. Right? There are some players out there who weren't the greatest in server, whose value they brought to their team was their ability to really get in the heads of their oppositions.
yeah.
it's a different kind of
Specifically,
pressure.
remember Mini at the CG LAN last September or whenever it was. I think he had 1 kill, and someone on the other team also had 1 kill, and he was just sitting there yelling. at the other team, going like, "Yeah, 1 kill! How great's that?" And then everyone was just laughing because he had 1 kill as well.
The
You
guys,
got to provide some value to
Yeah.
your team, right?
That's it.
the guys are effective.
And different people react differently. I know people out there that if you try banter them, or a bit of shit talk, as you might call it as well, their reaction will be to fire up. You'll actually be counterproductive.
Some people.
Yeah.
There are some people that that if they're having a bad game, you just go, well, thankfully they're having a bad game. We'll stay real quiet here and just let them keep having a bad game. Because if you start going at them, they tend to fire up. Then you get the people who are the opposite who I've seen it work in the opposite. People having a good game and someone will start bantering them, or the false accusations of cheating or something, whatever it might be, whatever mind games you want to throw at them, right? And all of a sudden they just drop off.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they can't handle that sort of pressure.
Well, their focus is broken.
Yeah, they start to think, oh, I am having a good game. Oh, and
I used to be really nice to people when they were playing good.
yeah.
Yeah, just to like mess with them.
NS, smiley face.
Yeah, be like, oh man, you're playing so good.
All right. So what I was getting at in talking about LAN serving a different purpose, serving a community purpose now, and having people accountable for their actions is now they realize they had to turn up, they had to actually interact with these people, and it was an exercise in building community. It was people who turned up to these events and LAN environments actually had to conduct themselves in a respectable way. And I think nowadays, LAN at a grassroots level serves 2 purposes. Purpose 1 is introducing people to community and building community. And the second part is what we touched on earlier there was actually that different kind of pressure, different environment. It's 2 different games for different reasons.
Yeah.
Obviously, there is the whole client side, server side thing. That everyone knows that's a complete, no-brainer. But what I'm talking about is obviously the pressure, and it introduces a new range and wave of players to having people standing behind them when they're playing, when they're clutching. What's the team environment like? What's the communication like? What's going on in the overall team dynamic? So I think grassroots LANs very much still have a place in preparing players to play in environments which they may not be used to.
Yeah.
And it's one thing to sit at home in your perfect space, your room, have everything set up nicely the way that you want it, your desk sitting at the right height, complete quiet, nice stable internet, whatever it might be. You're comfortable in your chair. You don't have people standing behind you, looking over you. Maybe
Laughing.
Maybe mums just come in and
Writing notes.
grab your dinner. But
Yeah.
that's about it. But you're right.
You got to get used to it.
No,
That's the purpose for me now of these grassroots events is like it's preparing the next generation for when they have to turn up and they have to go to a LAN environment and they have to sit opposite a crowd or they have to sit opposite people and play for something on the line that means a little bit more.
Yep.
I remember, like, specifically at the first LAN I went to, I had, like, one of those Officeworks chairs with, like, the curved arms, and the curved arms only let me get so close to the table I used at home. And I'd have this, like, posture I'd just have when I'd play. Get to LAN, you're in one of those plastic chairs on a plastic, fold-up table. Everything's wobbling, no armrests for my arms. All of a sudden, I'm uncomfortable as anything. Just going like, what the hell? I've got to like relearn how to play.
Yeah.
Like ended up like up on the desk like this. And then after that, I ended up getting like a gaming chair at some point just so I could lower the armrests down and get used to leaning on the table. So if I ever did go to another LAN, which I did 1 or 2 times, I was ready to like, perform as well as I could. And that was the whole reason I like changed into like a different chair and everything.
Well, that was the thing too. Like when we played LAN at the bunker back in the day, I actually went from having my nice little ideal setup at home. I'd had the monitor that I liked, the keyboard that I liked, the chair that I liked, etc., etc.
The space that
that I liked. But what then after playing one LAN did, I was like, well, this is completely different to my home setup. They use flat screen CRT monitors that run at a different refresh rate. The better players using that. So I actually tweaked my home setup to try and mimic a LAN setup in order to get the best practice for LAN, to be able to perform and just factor out some things in that environment and try and make it as close as I could. Obviously, I couldn't just rent a crowd to sit behind me while I played online, but that's implying that people actually watch my games at LAN. That's an entirely different
home crowd advantage.
That home crowd
for
advantage.
The Queensland players, which already
But
have
there are players out there that thrive on that. I mean, I used to love when I was at LAN. If I ended up with a crowd behind me, and you try not to let it affect you, try to focus on the game. But part of me was just like, I'm going to put on a show here. I'm gonna.
but you don't know until you turn up to LAN and you experience that environment.
Yeah.
And gain some confidence from it.
Yeah.
So, I think that rounds out that question nicely. But obviously, we're going to take advantage of the fact that we have some, I guess, very special guests on the podcast, and we're going to be talking to them in part 2 of this podcast. They are none other than the brains and the team behind MC. We're going to get Jordan from MC on here, and we're going to talk to him about what they're doing in the space. Obviously, we know that they're running multiple different LANs across Australia. We're going to talk about the purpose of it, what they want to achieve, and I think we've touched on it in what we believe Grassroots purposes serve. And I think we're going to be pleasantly surprised in that these guys are doing it for a reason. They're doing a good job of building their community, and we want to talk to them about how they're doing so.
Hashtag Team Jord.
Team Jamie.
What?
You heard me. Team Jamie.
Get out.
Fight me.
Whoa. Did you just hear that?
What's that, Jim?
Skrilla. There it is.
That last one cooked you, and I knew it. I'll take the home run on that one.
That was perfect. It's perfect.
It was like art.
So while we're all losing our minds here, I just want to take a quick moment to shout out to Skrilla. A great Australian company supporting Australian esports. Make sure you go check them out if you want to have a bit of a pun on the games or get involved in some of their fantasy leagues. They have some great prizes, and we love what you do, guys.
Skrilla. That was very much in the spirit of Shaft. That's all I could remember.
Yeah.
But it was...
Never mind.
Welcome back to Not Another Podcast. This is a very special edition. We have managed to rope in Jordan from MC. Very special Esports Social Club. Welcome to you.
Thank you very much.
It's good to have you on
warm.
board.
Oh,
Yeah, no, that's it.
It could be warmer.
You can get closer,
I was going to say, you guys have spaced yourself out.
Yeah, I don't
a
know
little
what's
bit.
happening. I
Off
sat down and he
No,
moves.
mate,
more
you're in
that
the
way.
gauntlet now.
Oh, all right,
No,
let's
you're
go.
in the hot seat.
You're the man in the middle.
As long as the gauntlet's
I like
not
it.
in you, you're fine.
Oh,
The meat in the sandwich.
Anyway, we're going to, I guess, expand a little bit further on what we were talking about just previously with Grassroots LAN. Now, Team MC have been doing it Australia-wide. You've just, out of nowhere, declared that you're creating a national tour of LAN events to create community. What purpose did you have in mind when you set about this mammoth task?
the main thing was Grassroots, obviously, and Grassroots for us was more giving back to the community. So the whole reason MC started in the first place was to help support these younger players that might have been taken advantage of or weren't being looked after. And that's where it just kept going on. It kept rolling over, and it was more just the support thing and giving back to the community of CS, right? It is a small community, and it needs to grow. And just like anything else, if the grassroots aren't going strong, it's not going to get bigger anytime soon, you know. And more us being more involved in that, we're seeing it more and more. So yeah, the big question is, how do you get more people excited about, you know, playing CS?
I think you guys have done a fantastic job in not only raising the profile of the events you've done week on week, or event on event, should I say. You guys have stepped it up in one element over another, whether that be from a player perspective and making sure that things run on time, and you've got a good admin team that make things work like clockwork. They're being treated quite well in that regard. And then from a social standpoint, the coverage of the events have stepped up, and people are aware of them, and it's created awareness for people to anticipate the sign-ups for the next event. I think, would it be safe to say that event on event, you guys have experienced more and more interest?
Yeah, massively. Even just like player communication with our team has gotten heaps better. Like we've done 3 now, and yeah, you get players now that actually come up and say thanks for having us, you know, and they have a bit of a chat about it. Where like the first one, there wasn't that much interaction. So yeah, it's getting more and more
building
popular.
that community.
Which is,
I was going to say, so my question to you in regards to that is, obviously you guys have built a great community around what you guys do. You know, Team Jamie right here, but like.
Realize who you're sitting next to.
Yeah, no,
I know.
I had to put it out there.
It's a dangerous game.
I'm getting evils from Mac over the production desk, by the way. So,
No, he's just falling asleep.
but no, my question to you is, right, you've built this great community around what you guys are doing, not just around the lands, but around MC as a whole, right? How much planning went into that as far as like that being a goal, or how much of it just sort of happened as a byproduct of the fact that you guys wanted to give back, I guess is my question to you.
There wasn't a lot of planning to get us to this point, really. Like, I think it's more that we started this as a family operation, I guess.
Yeah.
And that has grown bigger and bigger and bigger. And like anyone that comes in contact with us knows that we are very family orientated. And I think that's where we've gotten a lot of our following from, is just that there's no like, this is a business, yes, but it's not at the same time. Like, everyone has a bit of fun with it.
Yeah.
You know, we get together, we have dinners, we have lunch, we muck around. Yeah, it's just kind of grown on its own.
Just roll with the punches.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you're one of the few orgs that, like, if I were to call you that, an organization that I've come across where you've got players and people that have been involved in the org that may have moved on, that are still very passionate about MC.
Well,
and still
like I said before, the supporting these younger players, that's where it all came from. So our first initial thought of the organization was we would be a stepping stone, right? So like, we teach these players how to act professionally and everything like that, so that if a higher tier org did come along, they would have that, like, the best opportunity possible. We all know that players need to create their own brand and everything like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's our job as the organization, any organization, but like, that's our main goals with the communication, things like that. So I think just being, you know, loving and respectful and everything like that to these players, that's why we don't have a lot of flack when they move on past MC.
Yeah.
I think it's safe to say that you're doing a good job. But not the other thing that stepped up, and I'll give credit to the team there, is the production from like a point of view. I was like,
job.
You know, admins, social media, turf the production guys. As a production person myself, I do notice that as well. So I'm giving a shout out to you guys in that regard.
Because not many people realize, it's a saying that I've heard you say before, Jim, as well. Like, a lot of people see the gold, they don't actually see the mine.
Precisely.
Right? Which is all the hard work that goes behind the scenes with admins, you know, with putting the production and the commentary that you have to put into these things now to actually get it out there. It's a lot of hard work and takes a lot of time. And, you know, kudos to you guys for putting that all together and not just putting it together, but doing it successfully. Because there's plenty of instances out there of people who try to sort of put something on and have botched it up pretty badly. So
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think.
Yeah, that was a lot of things that we've learnt from, and like, we're not taking credit for this. Like, it's not something new. A LAN circuit, like maybe a circuit around Australia is new, but doing a LAN isn't anything new. Like, this has been going on for years now.
Yeah.
Yeah. We learnt from people like Mav and Karath, where like, Mav's still going, yes. Karath dropped off and now he's coming back into esports. But our what we're doing is just kind of a tribute to all of that, and to try and set that benchmark for the next people that, like, eventually we'll be like, you know, the old people in the scene, and someone else will come in and lift the bar even higher, which is what we're hoping, really. Like, we all love the game. We all love not just the game, but esports in general.
Yeah.
You know, we really want to grow it. So that's why we're working as a community to get there.
Is there any plans for you guys? So obviously CSGO is sort of the what the LAN is. It's the tournament. Is there any plans for you guys to expand outside of CSGO, or is that something you're potentially thinking about, or is this something we can't talk about?
No, we can have. It would be up to Jess, but
Give away the
we
goose,
we
mate.
are definitely looking at opening up the LAN circuit to different platforms.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
I was going to just touch on the other the other element of what you're doing is obviously there's a very big, like, from yourselves, you say there's a very big player focus, but I think one of the other elements you're very humble in is actually not just training up the players around you, but also the support staff as well,
100%.
and giving them a platform to actually learn by doing. That's why in each of those areas, I think you've been able to step it up from like an admin perspective. Each event stepped up from the social media perspective. You've given people opportunities to learn their craft and hone it in, but also from like a production and content perspective as well. They've been given an environment to learn in as well. And it's resources like that are very important for the industry to go forward, because until, you know, young budding people in social media production, admin, etc., et al., get an opportunity to learn.
Well, it's grassroots for production.
It's grassroots for
the staff, the
community.
back of house.
Yeah, that's
the back
right.
of the house.
So in that respect, yeah, great job.
Well, it blows me away. Like a lot of our staff that are younger, like the amount of knowledge they have for their trade, I guess you could say, is crazy. Like it's taken me 10 years to get to where I am outside of esports, you know, where these kids are 16, 17 years old. And it just blows me away when I listen to them, like when we have our weekly meetings or anything.
Yeah. Like MC and stuff, just like out of nowhere, just
Pretty much.
boss.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's unbelievable. So yeah, giving them that safe space to iron things out, which is what we're doing. Like no one's going to be perfect. You're not going to run a perfect event. No one can run a perfect event, you know. But we're getting, we're trying, and everyone's learning every time we do one. Everyone's learning.
Do you
and it's
remember back
great.
in the day when we went? Like, did this happen to you? You went to your first couple of LANs, and then like you knew more about the LAN server stuff than the guys running the LAN server, and you'd go like, "Oh, have you done this to the server, like to get it up to competitive scratch?" Or was like
Honestly,
Queensland way ahead?
Honestly, Queensland, like no one touched that server. Like you weren't allowed anywhere near that
Azog?
box.
Was it
because,
Azog?
They had blokes that were Azog was actually Sydney back in the day.
That's true. Yes, with iStar and stuff.
Yeah, but we had Neril, who was basically this towering giant man who would just smite people who came near his server, or smite you if you even thought about trying to delay the game. But no, a lot of that stuff was already looked after. I think we had a good hierarchy in that sense. So I think what MC are doing in that regard is actually filling a big void in, as I said, creating roles and opportunities for people, not just in the playing sense. Like you're doing a good job of creating community there, but also creating a community of creators and staff behind the scenes. So I think that's another. It's almost an entirely different subject in that regard, but I think
they go hand in hand.
It's hand in hand with grassroots, right? Like we focused a lot in our discussion about in our discussion prior about like the player pathways, but we shift that focus now to like the staff pathways, right? Like people in the scenes. Like back in our day, there wasn't a pathway. Like realistically, your career opportunity in esports was like as a player. No one saw I want to be a content creator. I want to be a producer. I want to be a cinematographer. I want to be this.
There wasn't even people that wanted to be casters.
No,
because people preferred to watch Go TV.
Well, and that's what one of the reasons we started PGTV way back in the day was a lack of sort of, I guess, talent involved in what was going on. But and I mean, if you look at MC Land and some of the people they have involved in that, these guys have climbed their way up now to be some of the best in the region that we have for the particular roles and things like that.
It's a massive feeder, even for like ESL and stuff. So
a lot of their staff members are I guess climbed to a point now where they're doing stuff for many different tournament organizers and stuff like that sort of started with you guys. So that's a huge testament.
And I want to wrap that into a question. Was that a byproduct of what you were doing and just creating like a community event first, and then
100%.
All these people just sort of took charge of their various different areas and really owned that aspect?
Definitely. Well, Jamie and I don't come from an esports background. So once we built our family, which is our team, everyone did. They took their own roles and they ran with it. We can overlook, but we're learning as well. So it's crazy how our like this young generation can just create roles and responsibilities within their own trade, and then they delegate it to the rest. If our admins need more people, they can come on and they'll give them their certain jobs. And same with production. Like I'm sure the next one, like it'll get bigger again, and it'll be easier having more people there than just having one person trying to run the whole thing.
So it sounds to me, and like I'm a big believer in this as well, is that you've given a lot of trust to these people.
Yeah, massively.
Yeah. So like giving them that trust though is also you need to be quick in trusting people to get things done.
Yeah, definitely.
And that produces results.
Yeah, it has. It has. It's like anything. Like if you love and trust the people around you, they're gonna do the best job they can, because it's not just us. You know what I mean? Okay, MC isn't just me. It's not just Jamie. It's not just Jess. It's not just Nick. It's not just like, it is everyone. It's all of us. So everyone's fighting and driving and grinding to get it to a certain point. And the great thing is our main goal is giving to the community and helping grow this community. Like we need to get it somewhere. Like it's come very far, but but we need to get it to that next step.
What's the plan for Counter-Strike? What's the next step
Yeah,
for you
what is the
guys?
next step,
You're going all around Australia already. You got Perth, Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane. Like, what is there going to be a tour? Is it going to be a
Ideally-
thing where people kind of mass points and then there's a finale somewhere?
Well,
or-
that'll be a next year conversation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but like a great thing if we could get it, if we could keep pushing and start maybe getting in some sponsorships or things like that, we would keep running it around Australia, you know. But it is a bit taxing when it comes to things like that.
Yeah.
So you mentioned sponsorships. How have you found sort of that approach, or how have you found sort of sourcing sponsors? It's been difficult.
It has been difficult, yeah. Not a lot of people are open to it because I guess maybe it's not a constant thing. Like this is kind of, we base our dates off what's happening on the esports calendar, I guess.
Yeah.
When availabilities are for everything like that. So it's a bit hard to maybe get sponsorships for things. And I think that's kind of where the variant is.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it is not an easy task actually to get sponsorship, and that's like a larger conversation about sponsorship in esports as a whole, because I think there is a lot of esports that is solely reliant on sponsorship. But I think you guys have been putting in a lot of your own time and money, which like is not easy to do in all instances. But I think you've done a very good job in not just building community, but building trust within your own team, but also of your own team from an outside perspective as well. So like the community is gone, well, actually now they're, you're, as MC, you're a trusted entity. We know that when you guys announce a LAN, and trust is a huge thing in an esports community, so when you announce a LAN, everyone's like, well, this is a surefire thing.
Yeah.
Like, we back these guys in now 100%. I think maybe one last question for yourself. I mean, you took like how far in advance do you plan? Like, are you already having 2020 conversations
Pretty much.
right now?
We got back on. Well, yeah, we recently got back, and like 2-3 days later, we're having meetings about the next one to try and start planning. Especially coming to the end of the year, like there's so many things popping off. It takes a lot of effort to go into planning and making sure everyone's available and times are working, and we've got our venue and things like that. It does take a lot of time.
And finally, any piece of advice for anyone out there that is listening to this and goes, oh, hang on, I want to be involved in some way. Like, any advice you have to those guys? Are they free to reach out? Or?
Yeah, 100%. Anyone can reach out to us, but don't be shy. I found that this is probably one of the most loving communities, I guess, esports. Like, no one, okay, we all know there's like people that are toxic and things like that. But the genuine people that are actually in it for the community, you can always approach them, like this guy. He's got a rough
exterior.
You can always approach them and have that conversation and always ask, like which ways or which pathways should I travel down? There's it's not just MC that you can reach out to. There's a lot of other people out there that are doing, the same kind of thing in community building that you can reach out to.
Awesome.
Well, I think obviously as well, it's it goes without saying that like what MC's doing, it's accessible to anybody.
That's
if
right.
anyone wants to come to these lands, they want to come make a team with friends and meet people from the community. I know there's some Division 1 players that put together teams in this tournament. There's no restrictions in that sense. It truly is creating an environment where it's grassroots and creates an opportunity for anyone to come down and play. Obviously, there's limited teams as far as signups, but if you get in and...
Oh, yeah, we'd love to have, if we could have a 30-team, weekend, that would be great.
It'd be phenomenal.
Yeah, unfortunately, you can't.
Not from an admin point of view.
No.
Exactly. There are some restrictions. But we see it all the time.
I'm all
Jim.
for a 30-team weekend because that means we get 3-day weekends.
That's right.
we see it all the time. We see people out in the community. We see brands. We see certain, I guess, business level people, investors talking about how they want to prop up grassroots esports and support.
Put your money where your mouth is.
Exactly. Put your money where your mouth is. If you want to get behind something that is truly helping that grassroots development, then, make yourself known. Reach out to these guys because they're a great group. They're helping not only the players, but also the staff, like we mentioned. And it's something that if you want to get ingratiated and you want to be accepted within our esports region, like within Counter-Strike or within esports within our region, then these guys are someone you should be getting involved in.
What is something that you guys think about in terms of, what would be nice to have for next year? Like, what kind of things, what kind of staff are you looking for? Like, other than obvious ones like sponsors, anything like that. And also, as the second part, if you can remember, what's like the goal for MC like LANs in general. Like, what's the problem you're trying to solve? Is there a community problem you're trying to solve or something like that?
Okay. First parts of the question, we would like, probably, like we said, creating that pathway for people, whether it be production, social media, anything like that. Like we want to be that place where people can reach out to and we can help them get there. That would be the main thing. Not so like, yeah, we love our players. Like our players is why we all watch Counter-Strike.
Yeah, they're the product, right?
They're the
Without them,
product.
we wouldn't be doing any of
That's
this.
right. Because even with them, like to try and get a player to create their own brand is a mission in itself,
yeah.
and we all know that. Yeah, we
We've
all
been
know
trying.
how hard
Yeah,
that
we
is.
do.
So even like doing that, and then getting these people in, because there's so many people involved in just even an organization at the moment. Social media, content managers, things like that. Trying to help them get to that next level, so that if that opportunity arises,
you help them, they help you.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if we can get
What can people do to support? Basically, is what I'm saying. Like, can they come? Should they come even though they're not playing?
Yeah, 100%.
Should
We
they
would
reach
love
out?
the more people that we get to these lands, the better turnout it is. The more that we can show that the community is growing. So
yeah.
That's what we want. We do want people not just to come down and play. Like we actually want people to come down and spectate. There's a lot of times where I've gone to, say, an internet cafe and I just randomly start talking to people. They got no idea about competitive CS. They go down to the internet cafe and they play with their mates on Friday, Saturday, Sunday night, whatever it may be, but they actually don't know the competitive side of it. So I think that's the doorway that needs to be opened, because like any sport, right? Like football, if you don't put a lot of effort into the 6s and the 7s and the 8s, there's not going to be a 16s or a 17s team in the future, and like, that's the part I'm kind of worried about. I feel like there was a big peak in skill from your time. Like, I don't think there's been consistency in that skill. Do you know what I mean? Like from then till now, I wasn't around then, but from the research that we've done, it hasn't gotten better.
Yeah.
It's kind of either plateaued or it's gotten a little bit worse. Like, we're producing good players, no doubt. I'm not taking anything away from them.
But we're not producing great players.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like, we're a great country. Like
But
the
it's
amount of opportunities we've got here, we should be pushing that bar every time we get somewhere.
Yeah.
We're getting there. It's just a bit too slow. And my worry is, in 10 years' time, if those younger players aren't there, they're not going to be there when we need
Pretty
them
much
to be.
exactly what we
at the
said
top.
last
Yeah,
week. We're like,
exactly,
where's the
yeah.
next texter?
Yeah.
And that's where it comes back to my thing about kids on the bus. Like, kids on the bus have no idea about Counter-Strike, let alone like anything else. They're playing like cricket games and stuff. Like,
But yeah, it's a twofold question, in the sense that like you're doing a good job of trying to open that door to find the new players, but also you're doing a good job of retaining the ones we've got.
Yeah.
Like LAN is and these events are a great way of retaining and training up and skilling up players and staff that we've got. So retention is a huge part of that as well. I think a lot of people look at Grassroots as a great means of like bringing new players in, but
also brings old players back.
what are we doing
Yeah,
at
well,
retaining?
that's
You know what I'm
right,
saying?
yeah.
Look
Yeah.
at Bris Vegas LAN. No word of a lie. There were some guys that signed up to that thing I have not seen pick up a keyboard and mouse in at least 5 to 10 years, some of those guys. And it's all through events like that. The
Yeah,
fact
it's
that they
awesome.
know that, like, okay, there is going to be maybe a couple of events a year in Brisbane that we can turn up to and we can play, and, we have a good time again. We roll back the years.
Yeah.
So if I'm out there and I'm obviously listening to this right now, and I'm speaking to you, and I want to get involved, right? I want to get involved maybe from an admin sense, or I want to get involved from like trying to support you guys in other ways. How do I reach out to you?
You can reach out to any one of our team, or you can reach out to our Twitter.
Yeah.
At MCE.
Yep.
That's probably the main. No.
So just hit you up on Twitter.
What is it? _AU.
So
sorry.
at MCE _AU on Twitter.
Yeah, on Twitter.
And that's the best way to reach
That's
out
probably
to
the
you
best
guys.
way
Yeah.
to reach out to us.
Perfect.
And get in contact with us.
Jordan
Sorry
gets
about
things done. He just gets the
Yeah, I
executive,
don't-
he
Yeah,
just
yeah.
gets the executive summary on these things,
Yeah,
and that's
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Like,
Every
he
day I
doesn't-
get told the password gets changed.
So at MCE _AU,
AU.
if you guys want to reach out and get involved, because obviously they're doing some great things as well. We're going to have a transition and pivot into Max Mailbag. So I think
boy.
first and foremost, we're going to thank you for your time, Jordan.
No, thanks for having me, guys.
We thought we'd buddy you up with some food first before.
Oh
we got
yeah,
the
it was
juicy stuff
it was
out of you.
awesome.
But yeah, thanks for taking the time out of your weekend to come and have a chat to us, and hopefully we watch MC Land grow as we
100%.
continue to try and navigate our way through the podcast space. So
No, I
once
love
again,
it. I love what you guys are doing.
No, we appreciate that.
Thank you.
awesome. We'll be up with Max Mailbag like that.
And welcome back to Max Mailbag, where I am going to ask a spontaneous amount of questions to these three lovely men here. And so we'll get straight into it. No beating around the bush. Went a bit over time probably with all of the lovely questions. Great conversation that we have had here this afternoon, this evening, nighttime, whatever the
We've
bloody
subbed
time
out
it is.
Jim too. We should probably let the listeners know.
Oh, he'll come back in.
He'll come back.
I'll let him in. I'll let him back in.
But he's not going to
We'll do
answer questions. We've actually got Jordan.
it. Yeah, we don't need him for the question.
Team
He
Jordan.
doesn't provide good answers
Provides
anyway.
zero value anyway.
It's
really.
true.
Mm.
It's true.
Me or
Truly.
Jim?
Not Jim.
Oh,
Oh, well.
Wow.
Don't worry,
We're
don't
just sitting
just
right
making
next
sure.
to me.
I was just making sure.
This is how I really feel.
I'm back. It's time to roast. That's it. All right. So self-plug as well. First question. Ask my own question to my own question on Twitter. It's great. At Mac_is_trash. You know, if you want to find me there. Horde or Alliance, if you're going to play WoW.
Alliance.
Get out.
What's where?
All right. And
Do I look like a traitor?
all right. Cool. Well, that's it. And Horde, by the way, is the right answer there. So none of you are correct.
Scrub.
Anyway, I've got another one from at Dograt19, and that is: would a Blast Series event work for AU/NZ? That's the end of the question.
Yes.
Yes, it would work.
Yes, it would.
Australia still won't come,
Mhm.
but it would.
It would.
Yeah, the 2-day format, have a bit of fun. Sure, get people into a stadium. But I don't know how you get people into the stadium considering it's like, it's going to be a blast. I mean, you'll have like the European top dogs there, but who's interested in coming? Like I know IEM, that's a big brand, and everyone who follows other IEMs might see it and come down. And the social aspect as well, I suppose. But
Well, I am tie in other titles now to what
Yeah.
they're doing.
yeah,
So they obviously had, I think it was Overwatch.
Yeah, they had
the
everything
last
on that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they
That was
had obviously-
Contenders finals, wasn't it?
Yeah, Contenders finals were there.
Yeah.
So
I remember
yeah.
the crowd with their little chants. That was quite amusing.
Okay. And what about you?
Yeah, I think it'll work.
Yeah, cool. Thanks,
Yeah,
Jordan.
that's all right.
What's the prize pool for a Blast? Does anyone have it
I
off the top of
wouldn't
their
have
head?
an idea.
Don't know, 500k.
500k?
Yeah.
Yeah, somewhere between 250 and 500, I think.
More than IEM, right?
No, IEM was 500.
IEM was
IM Sydney was 500.
500.
Yeah, this time.
Yeah, right,
Last time
yeah.
I think it was 300.
Yeah,
If my
something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
It's relevant, Your Honour.
Yeah.
But
Relevant.
Blast has money and people want to win it.
All right, that's great. And we'll move on to how do you spell bowl from at Garn Servo?
Come on, man.
BOWL.
Beautiful. How about you?
Yeah, I'm sticking with that.
Yeah.
No one wants to take any second guesses?
No.
All right, well, you're all probably correct. Great.
Yeah.
Good on you. From at Wanda_CS, have your thoughts on the Starladder DMCA situation been asked yet? If not, why do you think there has been so little in the way of official communication from Valve and Starladder?
I mean, my thoughts on it,
Yep.
in particular for this, is that it makes perfect sense. This is Starladder's IP. It's their production. They're spending millions of dollars on this whole tournament to put out their product. Now, if there wasn't a GoTV option, maybe my point of view would be different, but there is a GoTV option.
Yeah.
If you want to get in and you want to stream the games and you want to look at them and make your comments on them, you're more than welcome to launch the GoTV and get in and do it yourself. But if you're going to sit there and pull their stream straight onto your stream, that's stupid. Don't do that. You deserve to get DMCA.
But that's normal. That's just a normal Twitch rule. You can't go and take
You can't
someone
just
else's
jack
content and then pretend it's
Without their
yours.
permission. If you've got their permission, different
Yeah.
story. But yeah, look, to me, it's really straightforward. I mean, I get the question. I understand there's a bit of controversy around it, but I think it's stupid. I think that the fact that there are GoTVs that are there for anyone to access means that that's where you should be going if you want to create your own content around it, not going in and basically just hijacking their content and taking viewers away from their stream to watch your stream using their IP,
Yeah.
essentially.
Exactly. Well, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, that's
any
pretty
other
solid.
different thoughts?
It's hard to argue that. If there is a GoTV, sure.
Yep.
It's very difficult to find the GoTV. I see Azad's doing it. Like Azad streams all these games as well. So
Yep.
go for your life. I reckon we
100%.
need more streamers that are not the mainstream, because the mainstream might not be everyone's cup of tea.
Yeah. Do you like No Majors Club?
Yeah, I love No Majors Club.
There you go. They just provide a different kind of insight into the game. They talk about different things.
They don't
while
even
it's
talk
on.
about the game half the time,
That's it.
which is the best part. I know what's going on in the game. I used to play it.
You're getting double content.
Yeah.
Well, it
That's
depends what you want to watch, yeah. I quite enjoyed watching Top Guns, like you mentioned, Azad's Top Guns thing the other night was a lot of fun. It's just getting his sort of point of view on it, and then just some of the general chat that goes on around it. It's
Azad. Oh, they're hitting shots, boys.
good.
Oh, that was quality. All right, and I've got one more, which I need to quickly find. It's back here from the other day. The other question, one of the ones we missed, very important one from a very important person.
Yeah, those mailbags the other day were good. I thought we were going to stack those up and go through.
Well, there's a few more, and there'll be people out there that realize that we haven't touched on all of them. Rest assured that some of the questions we thought were so good that they deserve almost their own podcast.
and y'all get a shout out when we do that.
Yeah, and we will approach every question that you do put forward. Just give us some time as we work our way through.
So Jordan, real talk though, Ian's
Yeah.
mailbag, that crackle, it was all right.
I kind of like it.
Oh,
It wasn't the
this is
best,
a perfect
no.
one.
But it was good.
It was good.
It was good.
Yeah.
I've done better, just so you know.
This is a perfect one because Jim's not here at the moment.
Oh, perfect.
So Mike Star, M1KEST4R.
I
that
know
Mike
exactly who you're talking about.
Yep.
Yeah, there is only one Mike Star.
Oh, okay. I still enjoy my job. That's all I'm saying. Undoubtedly will be spoken on, but, and then linked the Australian Financial Review article on Gfinity. What are your thoughts on that?
This is the trap.
This is the trap. Jim's not here, so
No,
you
Jim's not here. Look, I'm gonna come straight forward and say that I didn't see too much wrong with the article. I think people were highlighting the Hoyt stuff.
Mhm.
It was pretty clear to me, if you read the article, that they stated that stuff wasn't even from Dom. They've spoken to someone from Hoyts who wanted to stay anonymous.
Okay.
People talking mad shit on the internet.
Yeah, look,
Crazy.
I saw from people whose opinions I value too. So it wasn't just the old armchair experts out there having a bit of a shit talk. Excuse my French, but
Yep.
it was some people out there whose opinions I value, who are kind of heavy in the scene, were seemingly quite unimpressed by the article. I didn't see anything wrong with it. I feel like from his position and what he was trying to say was somewhat true. Maybe the stuff about it being sort of the only, I guess, the league sort of format thing that he pointed out. You could probably find instances where that's not the case. But other than that, and that's not a big deal either. Other than that, I actually thought the article was fine.
Yeah.
So, and I know based on what I saw on Twitter, I feel like I'm in the minority in that sense. But I'm happy to go out and record and say that I didn't see a problem with it.
Thoughts? Did you read it?
I didn't read it.
Staying with the time. He's too busy. He's too busy organising lands, all right? Don't
Okay.
We'll
Don't
get
take
back
it
in
out
that
on the man.
concrete so we can get going with land again.
Yeah. So
Oh, quickly, I just want to jump back. What's MC stand for?
Mannah Connections.
And what is Mannah Connections?
Mannah is my last name. Connections is, I don't know.
Where-
'cause
Yeah, but like, what
Lebanos
is-
have connections.
It's a concreting company.
Yeah, it's a concreting company.
There you go.
Yeah.
Which I thought was crazy when I first heard. MC, what's that stand for? And Brock's like, Brock is his
Brick.
pretty much brother-in-law, not
Yeah.
quite. No pressure.
No ring on no ring on that finger.
No pressure.
It's actually
just
so
yet.
poetic because there are some people out in the scene right now that do need to harden up. So
I can supply it.
that's it.
Throwing lefts and rights. All right, and your thoughts? Anything in particular?
I thought the article was pretty legit. I agreed with most of it. So
Yeah, it's interesting.
That's
'cause-
the least controversial
well-
thing I've ever heard you say.
Well, me and Ian had a chat about it as well. Like, sort of, we both independently kind of
I don't-
made our thoughts known.
I
and-
don't think I've really properly met Dom either. So it's just like
yeah.
it was just like, oh, here's this guy's point of view,
Mm.
and I was like, seems pretty legit to be honest. Like, basically putting the onus on the players and the people in the gaming community to have made their product work in the first place. I think some people were upset because of the money involved in the sign-ups at the start and everything, yada, yada, yada. But I think ultimately all he was saying was like, we came in and tried to do something that not everyone was on board with. And if you want to have success, you need to do something that everyone's behind.
He did highlight the
I feel like
problem
you've
with
said
Twitch
that
as
a
well,
lot
right?
recently.
He did. He
Yeah.
talked about the analytics and the statistics behind Twitch and how difficult it is to use them as a metric to sell towards sort of your commercial
Yeah, that's interesting. part
entities
of
and
it.
things like that.
Yeah.
And I'd have to agree with it. I mean, there was not too long ago when you speak to sort of sponsors and things like that, you could pull out whichever stat you like the most based on your Twitch data and
Yep.
sort of put that forward, and then you'd push that as the main stat. But quite quickly, a lot of these companies are realizing that a lot of these numbers are not as, I guess,
Not concrete. Man.
yeah, not as concrete or not as defined as they could be. Right.
Yeah.
And that to me is bizarre because if you look at normal like traditional TV, right? They've got a great system behind that where there's certain metrics that are used for these commercial sponsors or the partnerships that are involved. We are in the online digital age. We have all these computers that are connecting to, you're watching your streams and things like that. We have such an ability to draw so much different data and actually be accurate with it. It surprises me that we're not at a point where we can do that.
Oh, Google knows exactly what I'm looking at.
Exactly. They know exactly what's going on, right? And for me, it's a bit strange that in this digital world, and I think even from the outside, if you're like looking in to go, well, how do we not have solid numbers in this, right? How is that not something that we're able to do with Twitch yet? It is a big problem, and it's affecting esports orgs and tournaments at the moment, right? And as soon as it starts affecting the actual streamers as well and the influencers as well, I think that's when we'll see Twitch make a move. At the moment, a lot of these influencers and big streamers don't have too much trouble because you can join their channel and you can see, Ninja was an example. I know he's longer with Twitch, but you could join at his peak and see 100,000 people watching. Okay, cool. That makes sense. Away we go.
Never heard of him.
But in the overall and the bigger picture, I think as soon as it starts actually affecting the influencers as well, hopefully Twitch react. But I don't think Twitch care about little old esports org who's having trouble commercializing the numbers or even the tournament organizers.
I think the other part of the article that a lot of people had issue with was the Hoyts part, where they were just like, oh, Hoyts didn't really help. I think that's fair enough. Yeah. If you're Hoyts and you're trying to support this semi-grassroots thing, this new business take off in your premises, why are there not ads in your movies at the start that say like Order versus Chiefs this summer, blah blah blah? Like, why is there not more help from them? Like, why have they not got a banner out the front that's like Gfinity's held here?
It could be because they had to put more effort in on their part. With movies, usually they get sent trailers, they get sent the movies, and the movies are big enough that it sells themselves.
And that's what they used to. had like a big production crew. Like it wouldn't have taken them much to put it together.
Well, I mean, the anonymous person from Hoyts who commented on this article, because that's what people need to remember. This wasn't all just Dom. There was someone from Hoyts that commented on this, made it quite clear that the upper echelon of Hoyts didn't seem interested in pushing it from the get-go. They were, I guess, I can't remember the exact words used, but they were hesitant towards esports. And that is counterproductive to the growth. Like if you're going to partner up, like Iain said, if you're going to partner up with something like this,
commit to it.
You commit. You go all in. There was too many, I guess, hesitations. Like the community didn't fully embrace it, which is crazy. Because if you don't fully embrace things like this, then they aren't going to succeed. They are going to fall apart. And then that's more money that was being invested into our scene. It just disappears. It just goes. Right? And then Hoyts as well, they're trying to engage into a new market, into a young market as well, a young demographic. If they're going to half-ass it, of course they're not going to get the results they're
It'd be like being an AFL player and not going to see your local footy league. And then if there's no one watching the local footy league, what's the point of the local footy league? Yeah. Then you won't have an AFL player.
No, yeah, exactly.
So it's like if Gfinity's there and you guys are just sitting at home watching it on Twitch or whatever, or not even watching it on Twitch and just being like, oh, that's nothing. If you don't support something, there's not going to be anything there to support you one day.
Yep. No, it's exactly it.
Yeah.
So like I said, I was actually with this question, and even with the article stuff, I was a little bit surprised that me and Iain came down on the same side of this. I was really curious to hear what he had to say, and we both kind of had the same point of view on it. And I know, like I was saying, that we're in the minority by the looks of it, based on the stuff that we're seeing on Twitter. A lot of people saw this article and went for the throat. And there was a lot of things they didn't like about it, but I'm not seeing it.
I mean, this Dom guy knows what he's talking about. It didn't look stupid to me.
No.
And if you're going to go on Twitter and say blah, 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 you're basically saying he's an idiot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. You try sitting in his footsteps, walking in his shoes.
Yeah.
He had pretty big feet too. That's all I want to say. I did notice that at Gfinity. Good on you, Dom. Anyway, on a more serious note, I'd like to bring this one back. At Jessic_Park66.
Gee, I wonder who that is.
Regular viewer,
probably in the kitchen right now. In the sense of
whoa,
she is just next to me, standing watching, and the kitchen happens to be right next to us. That was. I'm sorry. I'm probably going to cut that out.
Wow.
She's in Studio B.
Yeah,
in Studio B.
You can't cut that
She's
out.
not in the lounge room. She's in the kitchen. Jess, my lovely partner.
Maybe not anymore.
for a very short amount of time. Are you aware that bees are dying at an alarming rate?
Oh, don't fuck with bees, Jess.
Oh yeah, it's enough.
And my follow-up, how are you planning to save the bees?
I'm not.
You're not?
It's not in MC's.
I'm not
business
going
growth.
after them. I'm not going after them. I'm just not helping.
Yeah.
Soz.
I'm aware that bees are disappearing at an alarming rate.
Mhm.
And,
You're watching a video every night.
well, no. I'm not watching a video
There's
every
about
night.
30,000 of them on the side of our house. Come get them if you want. Whoever's out there, please come and get them.
Look, bees are very important. Hopefully they don't go extinct. That's all I'm going to say.
I'll tell you what else is extinct. My time here on the desk, so it's time to pass it back to Jim.
Oh, wow, jeez.
You're back.
I'm back. Oh. Anyway, now that I'm back from the heck realm, we're going to wrap this one up. And we're going to give a special shout out to our sponsors, Skrilla, who have been awesome in support of the podcast.
We love Skrilla.
We do. And make sure you check them out with fantasy betting. That's right, Skrilla. And, wow.
Hold it together, Jim.
I'm going to try to hold this together. We're going to round this one out. As we said, make sure you check them out. They're a very special supporter of ours. They've been supporting us with the podcast. And as well, you can check out the VOD online. They're very special. Thank you to Jordan from
Thanks
MC.
for having me, boys. Thank you very much.
Rounding out our discussions on Grassroots CS. And I think that's a very good place to leave it. Australians supporting Australians. You can check out the podcast on many different variations, Spotify, Podbean, YouTube, and I think there may be a few snippets around on Twitter, particularly the outtakes, guys. We'll catch you next time. This is the Esports Social Club.